you doing, ladies and so on? I'm Brooklyn Riot, and in this video I'm going to be taking a look at the very earliest Kingdom Hearts games that are out there. I'm talking 1981, 1982, some third year. I've been a big fan of this series for basically my whole life. I wasn't really allowed to have any games for the first 10 years or so, but my first console was PlayStation 2, and Kingdom Hearts was the reason that I had to explain to my mom, who, hates video games, like what a memory card is and why I needed one, and then save up my money for one and still beg for months after. You know, I'm actually just going to talk about the games. Even though I'm such a big fan, I haven't played very far past the 12 mainline games. But, as I'm sure you all know, there are well over 300 Kingdom Hearts games out there. So, my goal over the course of this series is going to be to check them out as much as I can. But I only know like 1.5 languages, and I don't live in Japan, and time is basically linear, so I'll try to at least mention canceled projects or lost media as it comes up, but I'm gonna miss a whole bunch of stuff, and I am absolutely not reading your comments, so that's sort of my cross to bear. I ain't even gonna front like I didn't get most of the info from Wikipedia, so if you really need to reach me, just stick it in the Wikipedia article. So, I'm actually going to kick this off with a cancelled prototype, it turns out. Like all great works, Kingdom Hearts owes its legacy to something that has never actually seen the light of day. You're looking at the one that would have started it all, 1979's Donald Duck's Speedboat. In this game, you control beloved Kingdom Hearts character Donald Duck as he drives his speedboat. Now, since it was never released, it's pretty hard to place this one in terms of canon, but his 3 nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, all make appearances in the game, and it looks like they're about the same age as they appeared in Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. They also seem to age a lot slower than the ducks from Earth, though, or even humans if you compare them to Riku or Kairi, so that's not exactly a perfect indicator. But anyway, it's pretty incredible that Tetsuya Nomura had all 4 of these character concepts in mind all the way back in 1979. I'm sure he was just waiting for the technology to catch up before he made any good games. Frankly, I can see why this one was never released. A duck in a boat? Doesn't make any sense. Why didn't he just cast a spell to make himself half octopus? If I was him, I'd be half octopus like 60% of the time. Otherwise, a great game. There's reflections on the water, and there's no way to lose or get any points, so it's kind of a relaxing little game. You don't get to relax for very long, though, because the game takes about as long to finish as the amount of time I just talked about it for. Oh, sweet, I got a Bowden trophy. Next up, we got the game that actually did start it all, 1981's Mickey Mouse. This was one of the better selling Game & Watch games, selling about 1 million copies or whatever. It's pretty simple, and I don't like playing it as much as the Speedboat game, but I guess the market has spoken. Maybe that's why Donald Duck has to work for Mickey in the later games, while Mickey becomes king of his own planet. You can see Queen Minnie poking her head out every now and then. I think she speeds up the chickens. Anyway, she's not wearing a crown, and they seem to live in that house behind the chicken coop, so it's pretty obvious that this takes place sometime before they become king and queen. I think this is the only time these chickens show up, but I don't know. Maybe they'll be back. So yeah, there's not much to do in this game. You just try to catch all the eggs, and if you don't, they hatch into chickens and walk off. If you get to 100 points, they slow back down, and the game keeps going from there. But I don't think there's any way to beat it. I guess any game glitches out if you play long enough, but I didn't do that. This is the first Kingdom Hearts game to feature a variable difficulty setting, but the implementation is weird. See, Game Mode B is supposed to be for the harder mode, because you got 4 chickens laying eggs at you instead of just 3, but it's actually totally random which chickens are producing in game mode A, and every time you mess up, it switches on you to a different 3 chickens. So if you're screwing up a lot, that switch up actually makes it a lot more confusing than just watching all 4 the whole time. If I was a little kid playing this, I think I'd have an easier time picking up mode B. I did get way farther in A, but that's because I wasn't screwing up. As soon as I made one mistake, that was pretty much it. So, yeah, that's Mickey Mouse. There's a bunch of games from 1982. One of those is this game, the first Kingdom Hearts game to feature a crossover. Mickey and Donald is another Game & Watch game where you control Mickey from Mickey Mouse and Donald from Donald Duck's Speedboat, if you remember that far back. This game actually outsold the Mickey Mouse, despite one of the titular characters being from a canceled game. It uses 2 screens at once, which is also a feature that a lot of future Kingdom Hearts games would go on to utilize, so that's pretty cool to see this far back. And Goofy's here too, but since this is his very first game, of course, nobody knew who he was yet. Queen Minnie also shows up to give Mickey a big smooch, which is worth like 5 points or something. So this game's weird. It manages to be too hard and too easy at the same time. Let me explain that. See, Donald Duck, being the goat, takes on all the risk and does the hard part, walking across the top of the building and spraying straight down, probably the most dangerous way you could put out a fire. Goofy is supposed to be pumping the water at the bottom, but he's just having a little snooze down there unless Mickey constantly tells him to pump the water. So you really just have to control Donald, and you can pretty much cheese the game and rack up infinity points without even looking by having Donald move back and forth across the building in rhythm. The flames will never reach him if you do it this way. The problem comes when you try to play the game properly, because if you put out the flame at the very bottom, Mickey gets a big old smooch, and then everything just starts to go wrong. The fire hose starts leaking at a couple of spots, and the flames go a lot faster. If you don't patch up the hose immediately, you're no longer pumping water, but in the time it takes you to patch the leaks, you are similarly not pumping water. I didn't, try that hard. I've always been more of a goofy. I'm playing this in a browser. I don't care about this game. But anyway, I could never really get there fast enough to just get the flames back to a manageable position at this stage of the game. It just killed my runs. I didn't notice any differences between Game A and Game B. I think the difficulty this time is more based on whether you smooch. I got another canceled game up next. This one didn't seem playable at first, but I actually managed to figure it out, and I think I finished it. This is Snow White for the Atari 2600 from 1982. I was curious how they'd handle this going in, because Snow White has always been a pretty weird character. See, she's one of the 7 princesses of heart, and their defining trait is that they have no darkness within them, right? But her deal specifically is that she's the whitest girl of all time. People are always saying this, and it's right there in her name. So I figured an 80s game with her as the pro tag would be walking a pretty delicate balance if they wanted to keep both pieces of lore intact. It's not impossible, it's just tricky. And I guess Nomura must have had the same idea, because this one's a Legend of Zelda situation. You just play as a guy in a jaunty hat trying to save Snow White. You get 6 backup lives, but the timer is a lot more of a threat than actually running out of lives, so that's kind of a false sense of security. There's only 3 screens to get through, and the first one barely counts. You start out in this mine, and there's no obstacles. It's just 2 kind of collectibles. The white rocks don't do anything, but you can collect 12 of them and eat them if you want. The red apples, or whatever, force you out of the mines, and you have to start the real quest. I assume you're bringing Snow White the apple, because they're her favorite food. So after that, you have to cross the river. there's no way to jump, but if you wait until the log starts to float by, there's about a 50% chance you can push the down button to get on it and cross the river that way. There's a bat chilling up there who's going to be your buddy on the next screen, which is also the last screen, I think. So yeah, we got this Angry Woods stage, which has two things going on. First, the trees that kill you, which are pretty predictable and easy to dodge. And second, the white line, which is super random and disappears if you don't happen to already be standing on it, which you need to collect a win. So you have to get kind of lucky with whatever time you have left before that bald sorcerer shows Snow White that crystal ball. Next we got Tron, which was released on arcade cabinets and doesn't have a full screen mode. Dang. So Tron is a collection of 4 different games. There's one where you shoot at guys to get Tron into a circle. There's one where you shoot at colored blocks to get Tron into a big pile of garbage. There's one where you play Snake with the cool motorcycles. I like this one, but it took me like 6 seconds to figure out. And then there's a tank game. After that, it lets you play again, but I didn't do that for very long because I died trying to get into the pile of garbage the second time around. Look at that. I was like 1 pixel off. Well, that was alright. Which is cool because now we gotta play 4 Tron sequels before this year wraps up. Not gonna dwell on these for too long if I can help it. Tron was never my favorite Kingdom Hearts character. His thing is that he lives in a computer, but would you believe he's not even a character in Recoded? I don't think they ever really knew what to do with Tron. Okay, Tron Deadly Discs again, still from 1982 here. In this one, you throw a disc at these boys and can teleport across the map through yellow walls, which you create by breaking red walls when they appear. This game comes really close to greatness. All they really needed to do was make the disc still hurt enemies on the return trip, but they didn't do that, so you can't use the physics to your advantage at all, and you just have to throw them like you're shooting any other thing. And the further it takes to get back to you, the longer you gotta wait. So it looks cool, but it's actually worse than just shooting a regular projectile for like practicality. So yeah, that's a pretty fundamental flaw in a game this simple. Teleporting is still useful when you get cornered, but you can't do cool moves where you toss a disc out and then have it ricochet off the walls while you jump through one portal after another to rack up a bunch of hits on a bunch of boys. So what's even the point? Nothing really else to see here. Then there's Maze-A-Tron, where according to the manual, you're not playing as Tron. You're actually playing as Flint from Kingdom Hearts 3D Dream Drop Distance. But it's just a little pixel guy when you actually play the game. And anyway, I think my copy is bugged because I can't get the gun to work. And the little locks just don't do anything. And I can't figure out how to make the maze go slower. I saw some guy beat it on the internet, but they had a maze that went slower. Otherwise, I totally could have done it if I wanted to, which I don't, because I seen the Master Computer fight, and that's exactly the kind of flashing lights that I get migraines from anyway. I'm gonna start beating these games soon, but like, come on, these ain't even real games yet. Who cares about old 80s stuff? Not me. I give this game a none out of 10. Next up was supposed to be Tron Solar Sailor, but I couldn't actually find a working copy of it anywhere. I'm not really too torn up about it though, because honestly I'm just kind of sick of these Tron games already. Nomura, like, I know you like computers and stuff because you spend all day making games on them, but most of your players just aren't big nerds like that, so you gotta come up with something else, man. Gonna wrap up 1982 with Adventures of Tron, which is pretty confusing until you've touched all the different stuff on the screen, and then it's really simple. It's just that all of the shapes pretty much look interchangeable. It's kind of a mess, but I beat the level, so I like it better than Maze-A-Tron, where I didn't beat the level. That's it. Remember remember to remember you better subscribe to my channel, or else I won't make any more videos like this. Okay, so next up we got Discs of Tron, released exclusively for the arcades. Unfortunately, a copy of this game costs $10,000, and I am not smart enough to get MAME to work. Like, where's the button to make the games go? It just doesn't make any sense. But luckily, I got something way better than more Tron games anyway, so why don't you check that out instead? Remember that part of Kingdom Hearts 1 where you get a new summon, you're all excited to see who it's gonna be, and then it turns out to just be some unnamed Dumbo elephant you never even heard of? Well, I managed to track down a copy of the original game that this boy's from. It's also a canceled project. It's called Dumbo's Flying Circus. This is a really deep cut for the hardcore fans only. Uh, so I tried to make all the buttons go in this game, but well, look at the little gameplay demo. See, he can shoot peanuts, fly every which way. I tried every button on my gamepad and keyboard, and all I could do was press A on the gamepad to move forward, and eventually I found out I could press A on the keyboard to move backward, but I've only got the two A buttons, so I can't just plug in more peripherals until I've got 5 different A buttons to make this game work. That's probably why they didn't release this one. They didn't make the controls good. Sorcerer's Apprentice is a game that takes place during Mickey's apprenticeship with Yen Sid, which you can tell because he's wearing the same hat. This game takes place outside on a couple of hills, and you have to use the one spell you know to try and shoot as many of the stars as you can until the meter at the bottom turns all the way blue. And when you win, it goes to another room where you get to stand at the top of some stairs or possibly a rug and not move while you look at a blue room. I played this game 3 times just to make sure I wasn't like missing anything, but nah, that's it. That's the whole game. I hope they invent good games soon because these are still just kind of nothing so far. The last Kingdom Hearts game from 1983 is called Mickey in the Great Outdoors. Not sure when this takes place, but it has Mickey camping, catching bugs and frogs, bow hunting, and doing some really confusing thing with flowers that I never figured out how to play. I still won though. All you gotta do is be able to add numbers and put together sentences, except for the flower part. Not sure what that was about. Like, okay, I was probably supposed to spell the word soul, but there's no, like, cursor. So how do I know where I'm putting any of these letters? Anyway, it's kind of a baby game, but it's the closest thing to, like, a real video game there's been so far. I could see a kid wanting to play this on their phone if they were trying to learn how to read or something. So I was originally going to end the video there, but there aren't that many games between this and Final Fantasy at this point, and that really needs its own video. So that does mean that I'm going to have to go ahead and talk about games from 1984. Now, as its name suggests, 1984 is a very political year. In fact, just talking about this next game at all means that about 1/5 of the people who might have seen this video otherwise won't be able to watch it at all. And I'm definitely going to lose out on some potential sponsors as too. So, what was Nomura thinking? Well, I guess it's my job to try and answer that question as I walk you through 1984's Winnie the Pooh in the 100-Acre Wood. So, for those of you not in the loop, it's beginning in 2017, Chinese President Xi Jinping banned not only this game from appearing anywhere in China, but absolutely anything containing the name or likeness of the titular character, including the video you're watching right now. That's because the character Winnie the Pooh is actually a really mean-spirited parody of Xi Jinping himself, and he is very sensitive about it. He absolutely hates to be compared with Winnie the Pooh, and it's easy to see why. First of all, they're not even very similar guys. Apart from some obvious cosmetic similarities, they don't really have that much in common. First of all, listen to how they talk. Xi Jinping is always saying stuff like,
China will continue to adopt multiple measures to advance the reform and opening of its financial sector so that its financial market can better adapt to financial modernization and globalization.
and Winnie the Pooh is more known for saying stuff like,
I'm so rumbly in my tumbly.
I just don't think Xi Jinping would say that. So, even as a parody, that's pretty lazy, don't you think? Also, look at where they live. Xi Jinping lives here, at the Zhongyan High, and owns another house at Jade Spring Hill. Winnie the Pooh has a much smaller home inside of a tree. This is located in the 100-acre wood, which is estimated to be about 100 acres. China is 2.371 billion acres big, a way bigger number. Of course, Winnie the Pooh doesn't even rule over the 100-acre wood. He just lives there with all of his friends. In fact, it doesn't really seem like they have any kind of state government, class system, or any kind of money at all. I don't know if there's a word for that kind of society. I'm not an ecologist, but most of their food is either made by bees or grown by their friend Rabbit. Meanwhile, Xi Jinping is considered to be the most powerful ruler of China since Mao. In 2023, he broke a long-standing tradition of stepping down after 2 terms, when the National People's Council, whose members are appointed by the ruling party, unanimously voted 2,952 to 0 to have Jinping's term extended. He's also pretty famous for mass surveillance and media censorship, like preventing the people of China from accessing online material. Winnie the Pooh spends pretty much all his time climbing trees, eating honey, uh, making up games to play, and hanging out with his pals. So, as you can see, they're 2 pretty different guys, and that's just the stuff everyone already knows about. Also, it's pretty silly to call him the Pooh. Like, come on, we all know that's the word for poop. You're not fooling anybody, Tetsuya, you big nerd. Honestly, I think it might be kind of disrespectful for me to keep calling him the Pooh in this video, so to be safe, from here out, I'm just calling him Winnie the President. So, Winnie the President in the 100-Acre Wood is actually a really cool game. I'm not willing to say it's like the first good game just yet, but it's pretty close. In this game, a blustery wind blows away a bunch of stuff from Winnie the President and his friends, and it's up to you to go and get them back. There is a mirror, but you can't look in it, so I don't know who the player is supposed to be in the game, but I can tell you what they aren't. They aren't a heffalump or a woozle because they don't know what that stuff is, and neither does the narrator. The bottom of the text box was just cut off like that for my playthrough, by the way. You're seeing the same way as how I did. And it can't be any of the game characters who appear in the game since you can interact with all of them. The gang's all here, and their designs haven't changed a whole lot in 40 years. You got Kanga, Roo, Eeyore, Rabbit, Owl, Piglet, Tigger, and Winnie the President himself. There's also this guy whose name is Christopher Robin. He isn't in the later games, but there are going to be a bunch more games about Winnie the President after this, so I assume at some point he dies or something. Anyway, Eeyore, Piglet, Winnie the President, and Roo have all lost items that you have to find. Rabbit and Kanga don't do anything except answer the door. Owl gives hints whenever you bring him a thing, and Tigger just gets in the way like he always does. there are 3 forces in nature that can keep you from getting all the stuff back to the people who need it, and he's one of them. The other 2 are the blustery wind and the mist. When the mist shows up, it'll drop you off in some random part of the map, and Tigger does the same thing, except he also makes you lose whatever you're carrying. The wind moves all the objects around randomly on the map, so you gotta look everywhere for them again. It took me something like 40 minutes to beat the game. If I was better at remembering where stuff is on maps, I probably would have beat it sooner. Anyway, you return the last thing, and then you get invited to a party that you have to go and find yourself. There are a few places that kind of feel like hidden areas, but nothing's really hidden since the navigation is menu-based, and it shows you all the options, and it's a perfect square grid without any little places off past where the walls are, at least I'm pretty sure. But yeah, anyway, it turned out it was just at this picnic table. Spoilers. Yeah, so at the end there's a reward where it gives you the secret lyrics of the Winnie the President song. You know, the one that usually plays when you're in the 100-acre wood? Yeah, it turns out there's lyrics, and they're all about Winnie and his friends, with a surprising amount of focus on the Christopher Robin character. I can see why they didn't include these lyrics in Kingdom Hearts. It would just be confusing since he's already dead in that game, or whatever. Anyway, here, I recorded myself singing along to the song, so you can learn the lyrics yourself even if you never played the original game. Oh, Winnie the... Winnie the... Tubby little cubby all stuffed with fluff, he's Winnie the... Winnie the... Willy-nilly silly old bean, deep in the 100-acre wood, where Christopher Robin plays. You will find the enchanted neighborhood of Christopher's childhood days. A donkey named Eeyore is his friend, and Kanga and Little Roo. There's Rabbit and Piglet, and there's Owl, but most of all Winnie the... And then it just repeats until you close the window. Pretty cool stuff, but none of that answers the question of why beloved video gamer Tetsuya Nomura would create such a mean-spirited parody of Xi Jinping like that. In fact, at the time of this game's release in 1984, he wasn't even the president of China yet. He was just the CCP's party secretary of Jinding County in Hebei. That's not that close to Japan. There's a whole Korea in the way. Well, I don't really know either, but I think you'll find this all a little less mysterious when I tell you that Nomura still would have been a teenager when this game came out. Honestly, that shouldn't surprise you too much, since I know loads of teenagers who make tiny little games like this, but, you know, his age really starts showing when he's comparing people to poop and making, like, political jokes in his games. I don't think there are really any specific policy criticisms in this game, but I could be wrong. Maybe they're just going over my head. Yeah, I think most likely, though, Nomura just saw Xi Jinping on some kind of news story or other and thought, man, that guy, he thinks he's so important. I think he's willy-nilly, silly, and old, and I'm gonna tell everybody. He would have thought it in Japanese, though. Next up, we got... What? Mickey Mouse for the Game & Watch? What is this, 1984? Yeah, there's a whole other game with the same name as a different one, and it's way too hard. I tried like 4 times and I couldn't even get to 20 points. That's how hard this game is. So, yeah, Mickey and Donald are back again, and now they're working in a circus somewhere, which feels kind of random, but we already know these two have done a lot of stuff in a lot of places, so I'm not about to ask questions. This time you're supposed to juggle the juggling sticks, but not the ones that are on fire. And if you juggle the wrong stick, or don't juggle the right stick, you gain a Donald. 3 Donalds and you're out of there, Buster. There are 2 difficulty settings like always, but they're not very different from each other like always. They could have come up with a better name for this one though, like one that wasn't already taken. Like Mickey's Circus or something. You can have that idea for free. Now we're Donald Duck's Playground. This game has 3 difficulty settings, but the only difference is how much stuff costs in stores. That means there's an objectively correct answer to this riddle. As Scrooge McDuck would say, I want to keep all the money. This game's all about money. Duckburg has 3 stores, 4 jobs you can work at, and a big park you can play at, but only after you buy your own playground equipment. And the gang's all here too. Every character we've met so far that's from Disney Town is here in Duckburg. Mickey, Huey, Minnie, Goofy, Louie, Dewey, and Donald. They all want your money, so to win, you have to work at the jobs and buy out all the stores. It doesn't take very long to do. 3 of the jobs only give you like a dime or whatever for a 10-minute shift, but at the airport job, you can make $1 every like 2 minutes, so just do that one for a while and you can buy everything, no problemo. Except for actually, that's a lie. There's one big problemo, and that's that picking up money to pay for stuff is the hardest part of this whole game. I've worked a few cash registers before, and it was never this hard to pick up money no matter what I was on. I had to slow down the emulation speed just to have a chance at picking up these nickels. The cursor just moves way too fast. Sometimes it was actually easier to just give them too much money instead of trying to get the nickels, because at least the change menu slows the cursor down for you. Anyway, once you gotten past that, the only last thing to do is to go to the park. Did I mention Donald's walk speed is way too slow in this game? I slowed down the emulation speed like I said, but this walk cycle is already ridiculous. I don't think they could have possibly had playtesters for this game, given the wild variations in speed as well as difficulty between jobs. Anyway, once you get to the park, you become a kid again, which I think is the first metaphor that there's been in these games that I got. I always feel the same way when I go to an empty playground and start messing around with a captain's wheel or whatever. It's good times. This playground looks really cool too. There's a zip line and a huge rocket ship slide. There's nothing else to do at the end though. It doesn't tell you that you won the game, but I know that I did, because I did all the stuff. Last, we have Mickey's Space Adventure, the first game in the series to include Pluto. And wouldn't you know it, you also get to go to the planet Pluto in this game, which makes some screens, like this one right here, really confusing. That's also the last screen I ever saw in the online version of the game, because it wants me to insert disc 2, and I cannot do that on a browser. So, as much as I would have happily ended the video there's going to be DOS-exclusive Kingdom Hearts games popping up as late as 1993, so I kind of had to stop playing in browser and just figure this one out for real. Okay, so I did that stuff I said, and now I've beaten the game for real. I have a few notes. 1, Mickey, Minnie, and Pluto all live on Earth in this game. Pluto is probably from Pluto, because when you go there, you meet a bunch of aliens who look just like him, talk just like him, and also love bones. There's not a lot of Pluto lore in the later Kingdom Hearts games, and I think it's cool that this one gives us that background information. He's always had a pretty mysterious agenda, and it turns out that's been true starting with his very first appearance in the series. The game being called Mickey's Space Adventure kinda implies that this is the first time Mickey Mouse ever travels through space too, so Earth was probably his original home planet. Now, 9 planets is a lot to get through, and I'm not gonna walk you through all of them, but you basically just have to collect all the crystals to help out some mysterious aliens called the Euron, who just kind of give you the ship for a while. It's not too hard, but by the end of it, I was really ready to put the game down. There are two mechanics that really work against it here in conjunction. Three, if you count the fact that it's just kind of annoying to do anything with this menu system, which makes you press enter twice every time. Well, the first other thing is the oxygen system. You run out of oxygen really fast in this game, and you won't get to explore an entire planet before you have to go back to the ship. So whenever you find a crystal, it's never worth it to explore the rest of the planet if you haven't seen all of it already, because you get super sick of running back to the ship every time, closing the door, taking off your spacesuit, putting your spacesuit back on, opening the door, and then running back to where you left off. Luckily, you never need items from other planets. Everything you need is either lying around wherever you already are, or back on Earth where you've got all the oxygen you can breathe. The other even worse thing is that for some reason only Earth and the spaceship are on Disk 1. The exterior of every planet and moon is stored on Disk 2, meaning that every time you need to go back to the ship for oxygen, you also get to swap the disks out and then back again, which makes the mechanics so much worse than it already was. Even without the oxygen thing, this would get annoying really fast. Luckily for me, I found out pretty quickly that I could ignore this without the game crashing, because all the files with the same names turned out to be identical, or at least interchangeable anyway. You just gotta have them in the folder. Still, it kind of sucks that it keeps telling you to swap discs all the time. And if I were playing this with the actual diskettes, it probably would have added like 10 minutes to my playtime. As it is, it took me something like an hour and a half to play through everything. I wouldn't really recommend it. And that's it. That's all the Kingdom Hearts games from the pre-Good Games era. You're welcome. I had a lot of fun making this video because I had to take a week off work because I was sick and I needed something to do. So that was it. That's what I did. Pretty cool. Yeah, see ya next time when I do the Final Fantasy video. Bye.